Alrighty, we ready to get started?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thorne. Today is Thursday, May 11th. This is a meeting of the Property Committee, and Mr. Thorne is going to move us through our agenda items today.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yannicone, and good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Property Committee meeting. So as our usual format, we'll be working off our agenda that's posted there. And I guess before we get started, does anybody have any questions or comments?
I do not.
No.
Okay, very good, very good. Okay, so our first item is the Church Road Athletic Fields. So on April 13th, we had our ribbon cutting ceremony. Mr. DeFranco, Mrs. Slipinski were in attendance, as well as the superintendent, administrators, teachers, students, community members. Just a really nice event. We had some food trucks and did some singing and an actual ribbon cutting. So it was a wonderful day. The sports teams actually played games afterwards. The community is really, I think, enthused. They're really enjoying the walking path. So just a great property for, our athletic teams, community, really brightens that corner up. So very nice day, and it's a really nice facility. So the middle school athletic, clubs, they're all using the athletic fields there on a daily basis. So really working out with our softball and lacrosse teams. So they're enjoying the benefits of that field as well. A couple things that aren't completed yet. There's a guardrail to be installed along Church Road because of the close proximity of the outfield of the one softball field. So we've been back and forth with PennDOT. Do they require it? Do they not? So their latest reference to us was, yes, we'd like to see the guardrail. We wanted to put wooden rails and steel galvanized posts in. They've actually pushed back on that and said they want a standard PennDOT guardrail, which means it'll be all metal. So we're looking to get that quoted and get it installed as soon as we can. There's also there's a back walk path from Lantern Lane, the road around the back of the property. So we still have to tie that in as well. So they're the two bigger remaining outstanding items there. But again, beautiful property. Everybody's getting the full use out of it. So thank you for the school board members to support that project.
Mr. Thorne, I think it might be worthwhile to also mention that you have just had delivered a set of trash cans and benches we're going to be putting around the walkway. Yeah, right. Yep, and they do have the school logo on the trash can, so it's really nice, really aesthetically pleasing. We did put an equipment shed there too for all the sports teams, so it's real convenient for them to store their equipment there. They don't have to bring it over from the middle school every day, so that's a nice addition as well. Alrighty, we'll move on to the next item. Alrighty, so the next item is the Erdenheim accessibility ramp in the rear of the building. So we realized that there was a need to put a ramp from the lower playground area up to the upper parking lot. So we looked into this project. We were, I think, a little aggressive trying to get it done this summer. What we ran into was the permitting process. Because we're doing land disturbance and everything. So the township, the PCCD, or the Montgomery County Conservation District permitting process is quite long. So we realized we weren't going to be able to get those permits in hand for a project this summer. So we'll be starting in early fall to work with the two organizations there, the township and the Montgomery County Conservation District, and securing those permits well before we actually get it out to bid. So that'll be a project for the summer of 2024. So, all right, no questions there. I'll move on to the next. Alrighty, so the next project is the middle school athletic field renovations.
So we were able to develop the specifications, put this project out to bid. We had several contractors bid on it. Just a basic overview. It's the athletic track around the football field. That'll be completely removed. The macadam, the sub base, will repair concrete curbing that surrounds that track and replace it in kind. So it'll be 6 inches of stone, 3 inches of a wearing course macadam, 1.5 inches on top of that. That's macadam, and then coat it with a rubberized surface similar to the high school stadium. So it'll be the blue surface with the white line striping. With that, the lower field hockey field, we wanted to make that a safe playing surface, safer than it is now. We looked at seeding and topsoil, but we just felt the better alternative there was to install sod. So we'll grade the substructure and then actually install sod. It'll make it potentially playable for this fall for our students at the middle school. We'll surround it with a 6-foot chain link fence all summer, water it, fertilize it, do what we have to do there. So again, that we received bids, they were under our budgeted number. The number that we're recommending to move forward with does include the alternate to install the sod instead of the topsoil and seeding. So we're looking for the board approval for that project at next, the 15th, the meeting on the 15th. The total number for that is $768,490. That was the low bid. And again, it was below our estimated budget. But they should really nice improvements for the middle school.
So we have discussed this over the course of several of our recent property committee meetings. But because this is a board agenda item for Monday night, I want to make sure that the committee is comfortable proceeding with it being added as a motion. So again, the motion will be to approve this particular bid at approximately $768,000 to sod the existing field adjacent to the middle school, the field hockey field, and then to renovate and resurface the track around the football field. Are there any questions about that motion? Anything that you would like to know from us before we proceed?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. Does this include everything else that we had previously discussed, the goalposts, the shot put and high jump, all of the other items?
It does not. We really pared down the scope, Mr. DeFranco. When we started getting estimates to do a lot more of those renovations, the concrete bleacher replacement, the dollars really escalated. So we were figuring that we'd fold that part of this project into the larger, if we somewhere down the road do a middle school renovation, that would be folded into that larger project. But the biggest concern again is the safety of the lower field, the uneven playing surface, and the actual existing jogging track around the football field has several large cracks in it that go.
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the biggest safety concerns that we wanted to address.
Okay, and I'm just looking at my notes from last time. I think we originally anticipated it being around 1.2 million. Is that accurate?
It is, yes.
And so with all of the other items, it would have been beyond that?
It would have been, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, we originally talked about underground drainage, irrigation, a handicap walking path, which there is currently handicap accessibility to that jogging track or the athletic track from the upper end of the field there.
Right, you just have to go around a little bit further.
Yep, correct. Yep.
Okay.
We do intend these other items that we've discussed previously, we do intend to include them in the middle school renovation project so that when we are in the midst of doing the staging for that project, embedded within it will be these repairs and replacements. In addition, we had also talked about the longer term, larger project, adding in the bleachers, for example, on the baseball field side and doing some additional field work to the baseball field and the exterior field, which becomes a practice field for football in the fall. So we do intend to do all of the fields over the next few years, but wanted to concentrate the scope of the job right now on the two most significant pieces, which are that field hockey field and the track. Mr. Bedard, I see your hand.
It's yeah, I agree with the prioritization. I think similar to Mr. DeFranco's question, I'd love to get a better sense of the financial bridge from original budget, what was taken out relative to those side projects, if you will, that we'll prioritize later. And then with the enhancements, things like sod, with the key question being, for those two projects, are we spending less than we expected, the same as we expected, or more than expected? Because even though we're deferring some things and coming in under budget, I just want to make sure we're not ballooning the project cost against those two elements. Does that make sense?
I think I understand that. Mr. Thorne, do you have some clarity on that?
Certainly can get that information.
So as an example, the sod relative to seating was an alternate addition of approximately $60,000. And our conversation, Ms. Green, Mr. Thorne and I about that was when you seed, and you can see the difference between seed and sod at the Church Road fields. So the fields themselves were sodded and the surrounding areas are seeded. And a walk of that property will show you pretty significantly the difference several months out in the quality of the surface. So we wanted to make sure to put in that ad alternate at about $60,000 for the sod, because it will significantly enhance not only the safety of the field, but also the timeline for playability.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I can also add a little bit of clarity on the question that Mr. Bedard asked about bridging, because I understand what you're saying, that originally it was this amount, now it's down, and we want to make sure that we're saving money on the pared down project. So paring the project down to the areas that we're addressing, the budget for construction costs was $960,000. So it goes from that bigger number that had all the extras in it to $960 for construction cost. And then obviously the soft costs are a percentage of the overall construction cost. So when you do the apples to apples of the construction cost on what we're actually getting done, that bid came in at $707,000. So it was a significant savings versus what we had budgeted for the construction cost for just this portion of the project versus what the bid came in. So that's why when you look at even adding the sod piece of the alternate one, that we're still heavily under the construction cost of what we had anticipated the bids coming in just for this portion of the project. So we're not comparing the pared down piece of the project, which got bid on, to the overall original amounts that we were talking about in earlier committees. Doing the whole design, it's apples to apples. Does that clarify?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
So essentially what we had planned for just these two elements was more than what this lowest bid came in at.
That is correct.
Including the enhancements. Great. That's great news.
Right.
And then I would have a follow-up to the follow-up, which is, given that you found a bid that came in under that budgeted dollar amount, why have we removed all of the other projects? Do any of those individual projects still make sense on the timeline and budget to get done now, noting that costs go up for everything at all times?
Right. Yeah, I would say the time frame for that, Mr. Bedard, is the biggest thing. The more projects, I'll just use the concrete bleacher replacement, for instance. It takes a lot of time. We didn't want to have a complete construction site going on at the start of school in September. We will have the macadam down on the athletic track around the football field. But that rubberized surface has a long lead time. So that will go into the school year. But the more you add to those projects, the more it's a construction zone outside when the kids are in class. So we were trying to avoid that as well. if that makes sense to you.
We absolutely, two things related to that, Mr. Thorne's explanation. We absolutely could bring back to the committee in the fall if there were an interest in doing the other pieces of that next summer. We could certainly bring that ahead of what is anticipated to be the total time, obviously, for that middle school renovation in addition, because they are additional pieces that we could get done in the off season or next summer. One of the pieces that we discussed as a team was that we want to make sure that to the extent possible, we're not interfering with the athletic seasons or with the physical education classes at the middle school. So Mr. Thorne just mentioned the rubberized surface of the track. So the macadam will be done and safe for student use in the fall, safe for community use, and safe for our physical education classes to use right away when the school year begins. We won't rubberize that surface until after the conclusion of the football season, so that the football program can continue to host athletic events on that site with the macadam track surrounding. And then when football ends, we'll be able to rubberize that track prior to the winter so that it doesn't interfere with athletics, but again, continues to allow us to use it for other programs. I hope that answers, in part, some of our rationale around this. Whereas if the scope of the project had been larger, there was a risk that we might have been interfering with some of the potential for use at the start of the school year.
That all makes sense. I'm just curious, in the future, when we circle back to the bleachers, with them being right next to the rubberized track, is that going to create any issue with that construction work? I mean, I know everybody who's hired to do this work should be professionals and whatnot, but it just seems very close proximity for such a big demo and concrete job next to the brand new rubberized surface.
Yeah, we did discuss that. They will protect it. These companies have a lot of experience with doing that. Actually, even if you wanted to work inside of the new track on the football, the grass field and everything, they build actually bridges over it that doesn't actually touch the surface of the new track. So yeah, we were aware of that. We had those conversations and it's definitely doable.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other related pieces to that, you may recall that one of the initial designs was to eliminate the cement bleachers and install portable bleachers and do some grading changes. And when we discussed that with the middle school team, they very much like the cement bleachers. So we're not looking at a full demolition and replacement. We're actually looking at repair and refinishing, resurfacing. So the project won't be as extensive in scope for those bleachers as we had discussed months and months ago.
Great.
Mr. Bedard, I see your hand up. I'm not sure if that's because you haven't dropped it or you have another question.
I had failed to take it down. I'm satisfied with that dialogue. Thank you.
Okay, you've got it. No problem. All right, any other questions about the athletic field renovations or the motion coming forward for Monday night?
Okay. And thank you, board members, for your interest and supporting these projects. It's important. It's a lot of money. As you know, we want to keep these facilities in top-notch shape and continue, with just our renovations and upkeep. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for going through the process.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Alrighty, next item is the high school partial roof replacement. So that the contractor was approved at the last board meeting. So we're working on staging and planning out the work for the summer, where they're going to set up, stage, dumpsters, what impact it would have on our ESY program. Will be moving back to the high school this year. The last few years, it's been at the middle school because of all the high school construction that was going on. Originally, it was at the high school, so they moved to the middle school. They're actually moving back, so we just need to coordinate with all the SY participants on, keeping the roofers out of everybody's way. So that's ongoing. Paperwork's filed in, and we're moving forward.
Are there any questions about this project? Okay. Mr. Thorne, let's go to number 5.
Okay, all right, so high school pool acoustical sound improvements, that's an ongoing project as well. We're looking to put the soft sound baffles in the pool ceiling, the walls, wherever we can get them, to improve the sound quality in the pool, as well as a new sound system. So that's an ongoing process. Hopefully we'll get that completed by September.
So this was a project that we had discussed several months ago as well. And we're really hopeful that some of the feedback we've received about the ability to hear announcements, to hear swimmers being recognized, and even frankly, just to hear standard public safety announcements will be enhanced with these new treatments.
Great, it's needed for sure.
I know, Mr. DeFranco, that you know very well, because you spend a lot of time in that pool area. You know very well how badly this system is needed.
It's amazing how many people that use that pool. Wow. Those meets are unbelievable. The amount of people in there and everything gets quite haunting.
It gets tight and it gets hot, but it'll be nice to be able to hear things better.
There you go. There you go.
I bring my own music when I'm using the pool for community lap swim, but
There you go.
Yeah. Next year, we'll start to have conversations. We had some preliminary conversations this winter, but we'll start to have conversations about the tile. We know that there's some questions and concerns around the upgrading the tile, updating the tile. We're aware of that. That's a much larger project for us. So we can talk about that next year. Yes, Mr. Thornton?
That is correct. Yep. Yep. The mechanical systems in the pool too are always, a struggle to maintain the equipment. It does break down. It's constantly in use. So we keep up on that. So kudos to the maintenance staff for taking care of all that good stuff.
Right.
Okay, next item I wanted to talk about was the additional summer project. So not only do we do some of these real larger projects, our long-term capital project list, it's a 5-year list that we update constantly. I just wanted to briefly run down a few of the other projects we're doing that people lose sight of that we do. So we constantly do security upgrades, replacing cameras, licensing. We'll replace concrete sidewalk, driveways, anything that's been damaged over the year. We're doing floor tile replacements and stairwells at the high school. We're putting up padding in the Erdenheim Gymnasium. There's none currently on the sidewall, so we're installing that for safety. We're doing furniture replacements, interior painting of classrooms, hallways, new stage curtain in the Audion, floor tile replacement in all the schools, anything that's been damaged. We upgrade our HVAC controllers, our equipment that runs all of our HVAC. We're still in a multi-year process, changing out all our light fixtures to LED light fixtures. So that's an energy efficient project. It's been going on for quite a while. So just, I just wanted to mention that we do a ton of other stuff that we really don't talk about, but it's getting done. It's getting done efficiently, cleaning the buildings, upkeep. So summers are quite busy for us.
Yeah, Mr. Thorne, every summer brings, I'll say, a very aggressive schedule for summer projects. He tries to be really responsive. Our building administrators ask for a lot over the summer to get done. And as you know, it's a short window. And we do have a number of community-based programs and our extended school year program in the buildings over the summer. So it's frankly nothing short of miraculous that the work gets done prior to August 21st when the new teachers walk into the district. So this is a very aggressive schedule for the summer, but some safety features as well as some continued improvements in just overall appearance and branding and updating the different areas of the building. The painting alone is a huge undertaking, and we're going to continue to do that on a regular basis each summer so that we can have a building that is as clean as it can be and as updated as it can be. Any questions or concerns about the items that Mr. Thorne just mentioned before we get into this list that's in front of you on the screen? Okay.
All righty, thank you. All right, so the transportation facility assessment results. We are going to add additional cameras and lighting at the middle school to move the buses back to where they park along the tennis courts. Currently, they're being housed in the grass next to the administration building, and that's not ideal. So we'll be installing the extra cameras right where the buses are parked and additional lighting there. We're going to try and move them away from 309 as far as we can, but we need to get those buses back into the parking lot. We want to cover them with cameras, obviously, and really bright lighting to keep an eye on them. June 1st property committee meeting, we'll have a summary of all the potential locations that we have been researching for a new bus garage. So it's a daunting process. We keep at it. Things come up, they pop off the list of potential properties. So we're still looking at that. And again, we'll have an update at the June 1st property meeting. We also had an engineer's report they did for us for repairs at the existing bus garage. So those short-term repairs include concrete slab repair, steel lintels, I-beam, rusting, painting, replacing, masonry walls, cracking, repair, sealing, things of that nature. So we'll have that in the June 1st report as well.
So as you all know, one of our district goals is the assessment of the transportation facility, the existing facility, and potential alternatives for a new facility. So we want to make sure to give advance notice that that report on that district goal will be at our next property committee meeting on June 1st. It has been a challenging process, and we've given some previews to that, given the relatively small number of options that have been made available to us with regard to available land and potential locations. So is there anything specific that you would like us to make sure we include in that report in a few weeks? We'll be happy to make sure in our preparation that we do that. Essentially, our plan is to give you an overview of the research that's been done, the available sites that have been explored, and then to talk about what would be needed in order to move into any of those sites, and then also, you know, an alternative short-range plan for upgrading the existing site as we currently have things configured, where some of the buses are over here at the middle school and the others are over at Montgomery Ave. If you think of anything now, or if there's anything within the next few weeks that you would like us to make sure that we include in that report, if you would just let us know, we'll be happy to make sure we bring a comprehensive report to you on the first.
I guess the thing that always pops up in my mind when I'm thinking about it is whether or not we're looking into the spot that Cheltenham's currently using within our township to park their buses. And I realize, you know, nobody wants to kick anybody out, but just if we've explored that, or if we are exploring that, to find out what that relationship is, and if there's any prioritization that could be given to the local district.
We absolutely will include what would the legal ramifications and the potential snags in that in our report. Yeah, Ms. Green has done some significant research on what it would mean to go with an eminent domain claim, which is essentially what you're referring to.
Okay.
Yep. Is there anything else that you want us to make sure we include? We have, I think right now, Mr. Thorne, we're up to 7 or 8 optional properties that we looked at.
I think we are, Dr. Yannicone. Yes, yes.
Yeah. So hopefully it'll be comprehensive, and we'll be able to really have a rich discussion about what to do next. And embedded within that is a response. You know, what are the factors involved in the transition, which we talked about a year ago, that the board is interested in with regard to other forms of fuel, alternative fuel sources. So a year ago, we gave a comprehensive presentation with Mr. Bray on alternative fuel sources. We'll discuss, you know, the impact of this research on that work as well. And we'll also include where we are with regard to grants that have been explored, existing and anticipated future funding sources. Okay, we know that that's of interest to the board. All right, so the second item on here, Mr. Thorne, you want to talk a little bit about our RFP process?
Certainly. Thank you, Dr. Yannicone. Yep. So we had a pre-bid meeting for both security and custodial service vendors on May 9th. We toured the buildings with them, answered questions. We're going to have a bid opening on Thursday, May 25th for both vendors, and we'll be prepared to have a recommendation for the June 1st property committee meeting.
Any questions about that item? Okay, and then lastly, we have the security camera upgrades. Some good news we received. Mr. Thorne, you want to review that?
Yeah, sure, certainly. So these we are going to upgrade cameras, software, hardware, equipment at the high school and the Erdenheim Elementary School, as well as some administration building work with that as well. This is all for being funded by the PCCD Health and Safety grants. So, we got quotes from vendors, and we're prepared to give a board motion for those lowest quotes for the security upgrades.
So this is an agenda item as well on Monday evening, where you'll see a request for approval of the purchase of these security cameras, and thankfully they're grant funded. But we were thrilled because initially, you may or may not recall that we had planned on limiting the additional cameras to some of the other areas, but because of the grant award, we're in a fantastic position to be able to actually move ahead of our scheduled timeline and add the security cameras at the high school in Erdenheim and at the administration building. So we feel very good about that, and that is in addition to the additional cameras and lighting for the middle school bus parking lot that you already approved at a previous board meeting. Are there any questions about that?
What was the bid that came in?
I'll ask Ms. Green or Mr. Thorne if you have that number readily available.
I can tell you that the high school, I believe, was 58,000 and some change. Erdenheim, which is a complete rehaul of the existing cameras at Erdenheim. What this does is now put all of our camera systems on the same system. Currently, Erdenheim is not on our system, so this is really good news that we were able to, escalate this project. That was about $53,000. The administration building came in at about $7,000. So you will not see the administration building on for approval because it's under the threshold for board approval. You'll see the high school and Erdenheim Elementary. The grant total was about $130,000 and some change. So because the high school, we anticipated coming in a little bit higher, about a 78,000. We just didn't have the flexibility to do all three of them, but because it came in lower, we were able to push in Erdenheim. So we were very happy with that.
That sounds great.
When Ms. Green refers to the system as well with regard to Erdenheim, that's the software systems have been, I guess clunky is probably the best word I could use in our efforts to try to review camera footage. And so while we can do so, it will be much more accessible to our safety team and to our administration when Erdenheim is on the same software system as the other buildings.
Right.
So it will really help us out when we're evaluating. And in both the high school and at Erdenheim, some of the blind spot areas that were not covered in the initial camera purchases will be managed with this new grant, much the same as we did last summer for the middle school, where we were able to add cameras in some areas that were previously unmonitored. Now we have a broader group of monitoring cameras at the middle school. It will have the same effect now with the high school in Erdenheim. And just in case it's a question in your mind, Enfield has what I would call a robust monitoring system. So we're not in need of additional cameras at this point at Enfield.
That's great.
It being the newest building, it had a really, it's very well monitored. There's a lot of cameras at Enfield. Okay, are there any other questions about security camera upgrades? Okay. All right, so Mr. Thorne, I think we've worked through the agenda items that you wanted to cover today. Our next item on the agenda would be public comment, and I can take a quick look at that. I don't think we have anybody from the public on the call right now, but for the members of the committee, is there anything else? Our June 1st meeting will be the last property committee meeting of this school year. Is there anything else you were hoping for us to include in this year's property committee meeting reviews that we haven't done yet? Because we have a few weeks to prepare. Mr. Bedard?
I'm going to start by lowering my hand later. I think just to bring to the attention of the rest of the property committee, Dr. Yannicone and myself have been informally meeting with the township on an ongoing quarterly basis around topics of environmental sustainability efforts that the township has been doing, efforts that we've thought about, including our exploration of electric buses. There's a new topic that's been brought up as an emerging opportunity that I just wanted to bring to the attention of this group, and I do think it's worth some dialogue in future meetings, and frankly, dialogue around whether or not this is a formal part of our school district priorities in the future. But the new topic is related to the Inflation Reduction Act, which passed recently through Congress, which has unlocked some funds to encourage the use of large-scale solar energy solutions. There was a seminar that was put on just last week with representatives from the Philadelphia Solar Association and other related groups, looking at ways in which school districts may be able to tap into funds, grant funds, to be able to support solar energy installation projects. I don't have more detail than that. Ms. Joy Berge from the Springfield Township Environmental Group, I'm sorry, Joy, if I'm getting the name wrong, attended and captured notes and is going to be sharing that in our next meeting with the township. But I do think it'd be worth looking into some of those resources, maybe even ahead of the next meeting, to see if this is a summer exploratory that we could do, just to ensure if there are any deadlines on grants or opportunities that we're ahead of that and have a point of view on whether or not this is something that we should explore further.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Bedard. Mr. Ford, who's also been meeting with us on those monthly meetings, has put us in touch with a representative.
Great.
Who we're going to meet with shortly to be able to get a little bit more information. One of the things we had discussed at an earlier meeting was the potential, when we are building an addition and renovating the middle school, that might be an opportunity for us around solar roofing. And if there are grant opportunities, that would certainly be helpful, because as you know, there's a certain cost related to this. We're also looking at the potential for charging stations. There's a grant related to adding charging stations for electric vehicles that perhaps could be a benefit to our staff as they may begin to convert the types of cars they're driving to work. And so we're also connecting with a representative through the township on that possibility. So we can absolutely bring an update on sustainability initiatives on behalf of the district at our June 1st meeting.
That'd be great. Does that sound good to the rest of the committee?
That does, and I'm glad that in the preliminary discussions, there are already some focus areas where we may begin. So that's very good. Very good.
Can I just ask too? I'm just curious. Do we know what any of the surrounding districts are doing in this area?
I happen to be going to a county superintendent's meeting this afternoon. I'll be happy to ask that question. We had previously polled with regard to electric busing, and that was very few districts. We had several districts have actually converted or in the process of converting to propane. North Penn probably being the largest district. But we can bring some of that information forward on June 1st if you like.
Yeah, I'm just kind of curious what are we ahead of everybody or what are we doing? I'm just curious. It doesn't mean we should change anything. I'm just curious.
Anecdotally, I would suggest that by way of discussion, we are at the head of the curve with a small group of districts.
Okay.
Yeah. I wouldn't say we're out front, but I would say that we're in that group that's at, at the head of the curve.
It's leading. Okay. It's cool.
And I think just to build on that, the most important question is not necessarily who's actually enacted more, but who has, if anyone, really prioritized as a central district objective or priority sustainability, right? Like we've obviously all over the last couple of years shifted focus on, operational effectiveness to be able to get through the pandemic, academic effectiveness to have catch up relative to, the impacts of the pandemic, mental health prioritization around resources for our students. And I would love to know if there's any district that said, in the midst of all of this, we're still going to make environmental sustainability a massive priority for funding, research, et cetera, because it does potentially create a distraction from some of the core services for students. I think we all agree it's the right thing for us to be focusing on in the long run, but has it become a stated priority of any surrounding districts where we could learn from word choice or activities and research that other districts have done to be able to, accelerate our efforts here?
Okay. We'll be happy to bring that back in June.
Absolutely.
Are there any other topics or questions that the committee might have that you'd like us to make sure we prepare for? Okay. All right. There are no members of the public on this call, so I'm going to suggest that we do not have public comment at this time because there's no members of the public here. So we can entertain a motion to adjourn. And
Sounds good.
thank you, and we'll see you. We'll see you Monday night, and then we'll see you on June 1st. And Dr. Etlin, have a wonderful time in Ireland.
It'll be a working trip, but
Oh,
thank you
okay.
so much. I'm taking our students, so thank you so much.
Well, I hope your students behave themselves.
I do
And
too.
you have a good time.
All right, thank you again.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great
Bye-bye.
day.
Take care.
Ready?
Bye-bye.